Ted Bundy, a complete psychological profile, the smile of a monster. Before the murders, before the terror, before the national manhunt, there was a charming young man who could make anyone feel safe. He was handsome, educated, polite, someone who could blend into any room and instantly gain trust. Behind Ted Bundy's warm smile lived a mind built on lies, fractures, obsessions, and a chilling absence of empathy. Ted Bundy didn't look like a monster. He looked like the solution. A helper, a friend, the guy who'd carry your books or fix your car. And that was the darkest part of him, because Bundy understood something most predators never do. Evil is most effective when it wears a mask. Today, we remove that mask. We're not telling his story. We're stepping inside his mind. It's about who he was, psychologically, and how a man who looked so ordinary became one of the most dangerous predators in American history. Early childhood. A foundation of lies and identity damage. Ted Bundy was born into a world of secrets. Raised to believe his mother was his sister and his grandparents were his parents, Bundy grew up with a stolen identity. This early deception created a deep crack in his sense of identity. Children need emotional consistency. Bundy grew up in confusion. Bundy later claimed that he saw violent pornography and disturbing crime magazines in his grandfather's home as a child. This is debated, but Bundy himself believed those images planted early seeds of fascination with domination and control. His grandfather, Samuel Cowell, was violent, controlling, racist, and unpredictable. Bundy admired him, feared him, learned from him. Bundy absorbed that model of masculinity, power through intimidation. Little-known detail, neighbors recalled seeing young Ted wandering alone at night, staring into windows, not mischievous, just observing silently, as if studying the world from the outside. Psychological effect. Disrupted identity formation, early exposure to violence, emotional insecurity, foundation for narcissistic and antisocial traits. He didn't learn empathy, he learned observation. Not how do I connect, but how do I blend in. Adolescence, the first signs of darkness. During adolescence, Bundy split into two selves. Ted, the awkward young man, and Ted, the observer of other people's lives. He was socially clumsy but extremely sensitive to rejection. When he was ignored or dismissed, something inside him cracked. A rare anecdote. In high school, Bundy kept files, yes, files, on classmates who bullied him or rejected him. Names, dates, details. He never confronted them. He just recorded them, cataloging pain like a detective of his own humiliation. He also began lurking, watching people from shadows, long before he ever acted violently. Not yet a predator, but already a voyeur of vulnerability. What forms here psychologically? Narcissistic injury plus compensatory fantasy life? He began to imagine scenarios where he wasn't powerless, where he controlled others, where he was feared. Fantasy became the oxygen he couldn't live without. A rare detail. Ted confessed to a childhood friend that he sometimes set traps in the forest, pits, sharpened sticks, snares, just to feel clever and in control of something. This wasn't yet criminal, but it was psychological rehearsal. Modus operandi. The psychology of hunting Bundy didn't kill impulsively. He planned, rehearsed, fantasized, and perfected every detail. Victim selection. He targeted young women, long, dark hair parted in the middle, women resembling one specific person, Stephanie Brooks, the girlfriend who broke his heart and humiliated him socially. Every victim was an emotional replica. Every murder was Bundy rewriting his past, killing rejection again and again. Psychological root. Revenge-driven narcissistic injury. He was reliving the pain of rejection through violence. The lure Bundy frequently used: fake casts, crutches, a charming voice, a wounded smile, a limp, books, a car full of folders, all designed to trigger compassion. Because Bundy's greatest weapon wasn't strength, it was the ability to make you feel safe. He pretended to be vulnerable so that his victims would let their guard down. A manipulator's dream scenario. Sympathy creates opportunity. The ritual. Little-known detail. Before each attack, Bundy would enter a mental zone he described as the entity, a dissociative state where he felt detached from guilt and reality. Rare detail. Bundy once admitted that after killing, he would sit still for hours, in silence, reliving every moment in his mind. Like watching a film, he said. These were not memories. They were rewards. He kept souvenirs from victims, earrings, ID cards, pieces of clothing, and sometimes body parts. These were not trophies. They were anchors for his fantasies, allowing him to relive the event. The double life by day, law student, kind, funny, friend, boyfriend. By night, predator. Psychologically, this duality reflects high-functioning psychopathy, someone who compartmentalizes evil with surgical precision. Escalation, losing control. As Bundy committed more crimes, his fantasy world became stronger than his real world persona. Key triggers of escalation: fear of being exposed, stress from failing in law school, rejection in relationships, growing addiction to power. Rare fact: Bundy once admitted that after his first murders, he experienced weeks of calm, describing it as the closest thing to peace I ever knew. This internal reward was the fuel of his escalation. Eventually, Bundy could no longer maintain the perfect mask. His attacks became less calculated, more chaotic, a sign of psychological decompensation. Psychologically, this was the moment the fantasy fully replaced his real self. He wasn't pretending anymore. He wasn't charming. He wasn't calculated. He was raw compulsion. The mask had cracked. Capture. The showman emerges. When Bundy was arrested, he didn't panic. He performed. In custody, Bundy became an actor performing for the world. He flirted with journalists. He lectured investigators about the mind of a killer while describing himself indirectly. He proposed marriage in a courtroom. He fired his attorneys because he wanted to control the narrative. Police noted something rare. Bundy showed more emotion arguing a courtroom objection than hearing the details of his victim's suffering. Why? Because threats to his ego hurt more than suffering he caused. These behaviors reveal narcissistic personality disorder, grandiose fantasies, desire for admiration even as a criminal. Rare detail. When investigators left him alone during breaks, Bundy would often smile at the mirror, adjusting his hair, still obsessed with his image, even on trial for murder. Final psychological profile. Ted Bundy fits the classic profile of a high-functioning psychopath with added layers of narcissistic personality traits and possible antisocial personality disorder. Dominant traits: complete absence of empathy, pathological lying, manipulation as second nature, grandiose sense of self, obsession with control, compartmentalization of guilt, emotional detachment, hedonistic and power-driven motivation, diagnostic likelihood. Psychopathy, hair scale extremely high. Narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, possible sexual sadism. Why was he so dangerous? Because he was intelligent enough to blend in, attractive enough to be trusted, charming enough to disarm victims, cold enough to feel nothing, driven enough to keep evolving. Bundy wasn't merely a killer. He was a master of illusion, a predator who weaponized charm, intelligence, and psychological insight to destroy lives. He wasn't the monster people imagine. He was something far scarier, a predator who understood how to look human. Bundy forces us to face a terrifying truth. Evil doesn't always come with a warning. It can be polite, educated, charming, helpful, warm, familiar. Sometimes evil looks exactly like the person you'd trust the most, and that is why the story of Ted Bundy continues to haunt the world.